Hello, welcome to our project today. We are going to paint a figure to look like Shoelace from Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts, which is a Netflix original. Uh, yeah. So here we go. I'm using a vinyl toy as the base. Let's take a look at that. Here's our base that we're working with. It's a DIY vinyl toy. I got mine at a sidewalk sale for $5. So we're gonna start by sculpting a hat because Shoelace has a little beanie. It's adorable, but the vinyl toy does not. So we're just gonna make one out of Sculpey. I'm not really a sculptor, but I'm gonna do my best here. Kipo has these really angular, stylized designs in the cartoon, and so I want to try to capture that in the shape of the hat. It's gonna contrast a little bit with the vinyl toy, which is very round and has a really weird shaped face. We'll get more into that later, but the face has a really weird muzzle shape, and I didn't feel like trying to sculpt onto the vinyl base. Also, the vinyl base can't go in the oven, and this Sculpey needs to be baked, so that would complicate things. I think it would probably melt and give me every disease. Anyway, here I go, sculpting more of that sort of shape of the beanie with the top part that fits over your head and the rolled up edge. I'm attaching those pieces together with my very professional clay tools. You know, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I think it came out pretty cute. And it's a pretty simple shape. Something I also didn't really account for is that the Sculpey shrinks a little bit in the oven, and in this instance it's fine. I think I actually made it a little oversized by accident. Oh, it looks kind of like a bowler hat here. Here I go, making the sides have a little bit more of those angles I was talking about earlier. So these vinyl toys come with a random accessory, and mine happened to come with an axe, and that's what gave me the idea, because it was a cat and an axe, and I just watched Kipo. And there's a lot of those, actually. That show is adorable. There's a bunch of different types of anthro animals that all live in groups where they all have a sort of like a gimmick. So all of the cats are lumberjacks, and they like pancakes. I don't know. It's a good show. It's definitely a kids show, but I had a lot of fun with it as an adult. It also gets a little more intense towards the end, which I appreciate. So here I am making sure that it fits nicely on the head. Yeah, it looks good. Here I go sketching out the face, which was real difficult on the curved shapes of the vinyl. I cut out failed attempts. I cut out a lot of failed attempts, let's just say that. Especially the mouth was a real difficult thing to get right. Yeah, so here we go with painting. Here I am color matching to that cream color that she's got on her fur. It looks like she's gonna lick it. That's adorable. I cut out what felt like an hour of me mixing paint colors. All the colors in this video are custom mixed by me and matched to the printout that I made. I no longer have a printer, so that sucks. But yeah, here I go painting. It's really satisfying, I think. So a fun fact about this project is that I filmed this like 4 years ago. Don't tell anyone, it's embarrassing, and I was too afraid to try to video edit because I hadn't done that since college, and I've never done it for this type of video. So it just sat in a folder and I hid from it. But I don't know, something just hit me and I was like, you know, that footage is eating me up, and I really wanted to practice video editing. And I just had a bunch of footage sitting there. This was 6.5 hours of footage, so it was lots to play with. Here I go with the green, that base green for the plaid shirt. I feel like I still have that little green container of paint somewhere. I mean, it's all dried out by now, but I think I just held on to it for no reason. Yay, hoarding garbage. Something else that was difficult was figuring out exactly where the cream and the orange divide happens on the head. I have some reference pictures, obviously, and I watched the show a little bit, and it's not totally consistent whether the orange stays like at the midway point across the back of the head, or if it's higher or lower, or if it's symmetrical perfectly. Uh, so I kind of just made it up, and it made me feel better because mine's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. And here we go, painting it. Yeah, I already got started on the orange. I don't know what happened to that footage. I think it just didn't exist. But here we go with that orange. Ooh, that's nice. But yeah, it made me feel a bit better knowing that it's not 100% consistent in the show, so the pressure's off. And she's a cat. Cats are not 100% symmetrical. Yeah. So, we're making good progress. It's looking good. We're about to get a nice clear shot of our current progress on the head. There we go. Yeah, it's looking good so far. I don't know what I'm pointing at. What's that? Okay. Nice. We're doing some touch-ups on the tail. feel like I talk to myself in the video in the voiceover the way you talk to a little kid, where I can see me pointing at something and I'm like, yeah, what do you got there, buddy? What's that? What are we looking at there, huh? Yeah, that tail area in between the back of the cat and the inside of the tail is really a tight squeeze, but it's not too bad. Oh, and here we go with the eyes. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm painting on these creepy little pupils. You know, they make me laugh when they look at them, so good job. Yeah, here I go painting the actual irises in. It's kind of satisfying. She's got these sort of butter yellow irises. It's nice. Yeah, I'm gonna try to paint circles on a sphere. So that's fun. I don't know, there's something about painting on a 3D object that I find a lot more interesting than painting on a flat surface. Not that I never do that, but painting on toys is just more fun. I don't know. Nice, look at that. Oh, that's not symmetrical. Oh, it's okay, I fixed it. So here you can see how I fixed some of the areas where the paint was very thick underneath, and you could see the edges of the previous layers of dried paint. I just sort of scraped it off. It was still a little bit wet with a blade, and then I'm gonna paint over that crevice. And it worked surprisingly well. The finished toy is fairly smooth, shockingly. Here I go with the red, with the nice sort of cherry red insides of the ears. There we go. Very nice. Also, the axe magically appears. I don't know where that was. It is not in any of the previous footage, but it like magically spawns into existence with a pre-existing red coat of paint that's not the right color. Yeah, but here I go fixing that paint, making it a little bit brighter, a little bit less of a brick red. Doing that axe handle color. Sort of a weird shape to, not to paint necessarily, but to let dry. But it's not too bad. Adding that same brown to the back of the ears. It's nice. The ears and the axe match, get some cohesion between the accessory and the cat. It's nice, kind of a, yeah, like a nice woody brown. Here's where the project really starts to come together. You can see that the hat has been baked. A lot of the paint, like the base coats, have been finished. However many coats they needed for that initial flat color is done. It's nice and smooth, and the colors are very rich. So it's really starting to look good at this point. I feel like this is the turning point of the project in a good way. Although we still have lots to go, lots of details to pack onto this little cat. Yeah, look at that. That is looking so good. Oh, okay, we're done looking at it. Here's where I start sketching on the lines for the plaid, and this sucked. Not the sketching so much, but just painting plaid is a lot of work. I don't know if you've ever looked closely at plaid, but the way that it looks on this cat is that you get the horizontal lines, which are sort of a lighter green, and the vertical lines, which are a darker green, and then where they intersect is a third, I guess a fourth, because the base color is green, a fourth, like, darkest green. Actually, I guess that's how a lot of plaid looks. I never really looked that closely at my shirts, apparently. But it's just a lot of little teeny details and a lot of really, like, clean edges and crisp little 90-degree corners. I think it looks good when it's done, but this was a very time-consuming part of the process. I mean, I'm still sketching. Look at that. I'm just drawing lines. And this, I cut out a lot of sketching. And the pencil doesn't like to show up on the vinyl and on the paint, so there's that. But yeah, it's looking, those lines are pretty even too. Good job. So here I go in with the paint, painting those stripes. Something you can see that I'm going to start doing is I start mixing the new greens into my original green, which is like, don't do that, buddy. What if you need to go back and fix something? Why are you losing your original stripe color? Very confident. Also, I painted my nails, I guess. I mean, they match the plaid. It's a little distracting, but, you know, it's alright. But yeah, trying to get those edges nice and smooth. Um, Sort of simplified it a little bit in terms of the number of stripes, just for sanity and also for practical purposes. Not trying to paint a miniature, which I do enjoy doing, but I feel like painting plaid on a miniature would be awful. I don't, yeah, don't do that. Unless you have like one of those tiny paintbrushes with like three hairs as the brush. Yeah, here I'm struggling with the tail. The stripe has to kind of go over the tail in a weird way. I just don't know what to do with it, huh? That's alright. I'll figure it out. I figure it out. Here we go. Maybe the tail sticking out from under the shirt, it's like pushing the shirt up. Yeah, and here I go in with the vertical lines in that lighter stripe color. Oh, that's like, ah, nice. That's like shockingly nice line work. Good job. Maybe not shocking, that's rude. Expectedly nice line work. Good job. See, I can do positive self-talk. Yeah, here I am lightening the color on some of those stripes to match the original artwork better. At some point I painted the hat. I don't know if this is the final color of that hat. I sort of messed with it a little bit before getting the correct one, but actually I cut out a lot of fixing of mistakes, mostly so the video wouldn't be like 3 hours long. There is a lot of using a wet Q-tip to clean up edges or erasing sketching and redrawing sketching, especially that mouth. I mentioned this before, but the shape of the muzzle is really weird on these toys. I kind of don't like it. But yeah, so the number of mistakes pictured is significantly less than happened in reality. Um, Cut mostly, like I said, to save time. Unless you really wanted to watch me Q-tip wet paint for an hour, in which case, I'm so sorry. The footage is out there. But by out there, I mean on my hard drive. I don't know, what am I talking about? Anyway, I'm still painting the stripes. I needed to lighten the color of all of the stripes. I don't know if that was the plan, was to just block out the area for the stripes and come back in with the color, or if I painted it and then was like, oh, that's incorrect. But here I go. And it's looking pretty good, but like I said, it's just very tedious. There's lots of little teeny tiny rectangles on a curved surface. It's kind of soothing to watch. I guess to paint also. Sort of meditative in a sense. A fun fact about Kipo is that Kipo herself is half Korean, as am I, so that's a fun little fact. I did some fan art of her in pixel art. Maybe I'll throw it up over the end credits or something. Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll do that. So stay tuned to the end of the video if you want to see Kipo and her leopard, I think it is, arms? Is it pink jaguar arms? See, it's been a little while since I've seen the show. But if you want to see that, just stay tuned. There I go, painting around that weird tail shape again, although it's looking pretty good, I think. If you haven't seen Kipo, you should, but if you don't want to, you should check out the soundtrack, because it's really good. But honestly, you should just watch the show. It has some really excellent character designs. There is one of the main characters, it's a post-apocalyptic setting with lots of mutated animals, like Shoelace herself here. Um, but one of the main characters is a bug, and he goes through the various stages of being a bug, like larval and cocoon and coming out as a full grown adult. Sort of when he gets stressed, he like goes through the life cycle, and it's very fun animation. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it and you like neat animation and good music. So yeah, we're finishing up the plaid here. Still painting on those tiny little dark squares. Now we're on the sleeves, which is even, it's not smaller, but it's a weirder shape. The piece is smaller, obviously. I'm getting paint all over my hands, as per usual when I do painting projects. But we're getting close to the end of the plaid saga, so that's exciting. Out of the plaid woods. That's a free location for you if you're writing, like, a picture book for children or something. But yeah, it's looking real good, I think. The pieces are really coming together, and I'm leaning my hair in frame, and that's gonna get worse, so I apologize. Yeah, there we go. So here I am painting the silver onto the axe. So the axe is really round, like the blade, and the art style, as mentioned before, is very sharp, so I'm trying to bring some of that sharpness back by having the inside edge of the silver have that really crisp, what is that, like a 60-degree angle? No, that's more than 60 degrees. 100-degree angle? It doesn't matter. Having that angle on the inside be very sharp and well defined to try to like sort of give it the illusion of being sharper than it actually is. I think it kind of works. And here we go with the last step, which is the outlines. So, it's an animation, it has black outlines, and it also has these sort of little black lines to show, not quite shading, but just to add a little bit of extra detail and texture and interest to the designs. So we're getting into that. phase. I guess also the pupils, so sort of, and the coloring of the face. We're in the final detail phase, putting on the little extra lines on the hat. This is what makes it look more like a beanie and less like a blob of grain. At least that's the idea. These were really finicky to do the outlines. I did not own any paint pens at the time. I do now, but I don't even know if I have a small black one like that anyway. So I was using a small detail brush and some black paint, and there are a lot of Q-tips, a little white Q-tips, which I cut out, so it's boring. But yeah, I think it starts to look more like a hat. I mean, it couldn't really look less like a hat, so so that's good. Yes, it's not looking too bad. Yeah, there we go with those little detail lines I was talking about, giving it some nice focal points to draw your eye on the hat. Nice. Here I go adding them to the axe as well. It's unfortunate I don't have a second axe because I love that picture of her in the reference sheet in the top right where she's just about to go ham. Here I am doing the outlining of the cuffs of the plaid shirt. For a bit, I thought that all of the plaid stripes were outlined in black, but fortunately, it's just the cuffs and the collar and the buttons, so that is not bad at all. And there I go. So I'm stabilizing my hand with my pinky underneath, and that helps a lot to get the lines relatively even and smooth. And like I said, I use a wet Q-tip to go clean up those edges every time I need to, which is almost every time. And yeah, and usually there's 2 layers of paint, and then I go in with a Q-tip. I think the black outlines really helps it look complete and finished, so it's a very important step, even if it's a little subtle. Here we go with something else, which is drawing the shoelace on. She's wearing one as an armband. I don't know if that's what she's named after or vice versa, but I didn't even notice this detail that much when I watched the show until I was looking at my reference images. I almost didn't include it in the piece of art, which would have been ridiculous since it's her name. But I was looking at reference images and I was like, what's that? It's a shoelace. You can see in that big reference image with the meow that you can actually see the little edge of it dangling and the little I don't know what you call it, the little end cap of plastic on it. But it's very cute, and I'm glad that I didn't forget it because that would be really sad. I guess it would have been interesting if I wanted to make this even more multimedia to have added it with a real piece of string or something. But I didn't think of that until just now. So I'm drawing that collar onto the plaid shirt here. It's looking good. Gonna get into the buttons here in a second, down the front of the shirt. There we go. Does this shirt have a line that divides the two sides of it? Or is it just, like, implied because it's plaid? I don't know. Here's the details for the shoelace, which makes it look like a shoelace and not like a white band. I mean, it is a white band, but you know what I mean. They really make it look like a wrapped piece of fabric, which is neat. I feel like those diagonal lines across really add a lot to the idea of what the shoelace is. Here I go outlining that little tail. There we go. Looking good. Yeah, I'm doing a test fit on the hat again. I did these periodically just to make sure. I mean, in the sculpting and baking process. Looks good. Looks good. Okay. Painting in the color and the buttons. It's very cute. I remembered the buttons being gold, but now that I'm looking at it, that's definitely the cream color of her fur, so that's a neat bit of color theory for you. Just getting that, against the grain, it looks a lot more sort of warm toned. It's nice. Here I go sketching the face. This is going to be the final version of the mouth. I really like how this mouth came out. Like I said, I tried so many versions. This is the one that looked by far the best. That muzzle shape you can see is real wacky, especially for an open mouth, but don't worry about it. Also, the nose isn't centered. Don't worry about it. I think it looks pretty cute. And I'm giving myself some guidelines for where the pupils are going to be, like how big they're going to be. They're large. She is like a very excited cat. It's cute. Yeah, good job, me. And here we go, painting in the face details. I feel like a scary part of the project because your eye is naturally drawn to the face of things, but also I think a really fun part, um, painting the plaid across the back of her is important for cohesion, but it's not super exciting. I think this part is exciting and satisfying. You can really see that that nose is a little off to the right, and I don't know how much that ever gets fixed, but you know what? That's okay. I'm not gonna change it now. We're just gonna be at peace with it. I feel like this is when the project really comes to life, like I was saying earlier. It really starts to look like she's looking back at you, and that's awesome. Yeah, and I love how huge her pupils are. It gives her this very, I mean, wide-eyed, sort of childish, excited look, which is very cute and not, I don't know, scheming. I feel like a lot of cats in media are scheming, but she just looks very optimistic and innocent, and it's adorable. I mean, look, even when she's charging at you with axes, it's cute. So they did a good job there. I feel like for this project, because the shape of the base and the shape of the character in the show are so different, I sort of found a happy medium, um, more along the lines of the way that these are often marketed, which is to conform the character to the shape of the toy rather than the other way around. In retrospect, I don't know how much I love that, but it was fun to try, to see how close I could get the character without fundamentally altering the shape of the original toy. And here I go outlining the eyes, which came out better than I thought. I mean, there's a lot of cleanup left to do, but I was kind of terrified and it wasn't so bad. So sometimes just doing it is, it's not as scary as you think. And here come her eyebrows. I've never really drawn my own eyebrows on like this, but I felt like I was doing her makeup. I'm a little hesitant, but yeah, not so bad, not so bad. Oh, well, that right eyebrow's kind of busted, but I'll fix that later, I think. So don't worry about it. How many times have I said don't worry about it? But truly, I feel like that's part of trusting the process, is not to get worked up about it. Here I go starting out with the nose outline. Do I ever fix the nose placement? It starts to look a bit better here just because the outlines are thicker and it makes the spacing issue be less apparent, so looks a little bit better. And yeah, getting into the details of that mouth. So that muzzle shape on the toy is really weird. I think that the entire muzzle is just tiny, and really the nose should be lower down onto the, like, protruding bump section. But then the nose is really tiny and smushed up, so I didn't do that, and it looks kind of funky from some angles, but I don't hate it. And I decided to do an open mouth because I thought that was cuter. I cut out me trying to draw the closed mouth with the tongue sticking out, and it was not working. Um, but obviously then you have an open mouth on a convex shape, which is a little funky too, but it's fine. I think it looks pretty good in the end. Just don't worry about the nose. I think if I were to do the project over again, I would sculpt the nose up so that the muzzle was bigger. I guess you could also sand off the muzzle and have the face be completely flat and round, more like it looks like in the show. Either way would have been interesting. But, I think it looks good like this too. I mean, look at that. Just don't think too hard about about the shape underneath. I say after calling a ton of attention to the shape underneath. But I feel like the dark colors of the mouth and the big eyes really draw your attention away from the muzzle shape, so when I shut up about it, it doesn't look so bad. But after a couple of passes of paint and getting those eyes a bit cleaned up and getting those nice rich colors in the mouth, the face really starts to come together. I like how the mouth has the sort of cartoony appearance of depth. I think it looks very nice. And those eyes are staring directly into your soul, but in like a cute way. I don't actually have any kidrobot toys, except for I have one Unicrono. I have the carnivorous plant one from their Halloween series because I love carnivorous plants. But I don't have any of this shape, so I'm not sure what they normally do with the muzzle. I guess I could have researched that, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a very stylized as many of their toys are. And in a completely different shape language than this show is, where the show is very angular and sort of darker outlines. The kidrobot toys are very round, and they have very interesting sort of almost forced perspective look on a lot of their toys. Like the feet are big and the heads are big, kind of like you're looking at them from the ground, and that's what the feet are so massive. That's what it looks like to me, at least. I just looked it up, and a lot of their toys in this mold are either solid colors and don't have a mouth at all, or it completely ignores the shape, so I feel a bit better. I feel like much like with Disney's, what do they call them? Their little Mickey Mouse shaped bean guys. The shape is supposed to be very distinct and unique, and then it's kind of too distinct, and making it look like anything else besides itself in a different solid color becomes very difficult without it looking really weird. So, here I go putting the eye shines in, that's always exciting. Really starts to look like a finished product. That's not really a product, a finished project, divorced from capitalism. Yeah, and there we go. That is a good look at the finished face. I think it looks pretty good. She looks pretty happy about being here anyway. Yeah, so here we go, the final project. I filmed this today, now in 2025. So you can see how well she's held up. She's very shiny. I did a clear coat with Mod Podge. I didn't water it down enough. She's still a little bit tacky, unfortunately. But she's very shiny. She looks good. Um, yeah, unfortunately, when you add the thickness of the paint and the Mod Podge or your sealant, they become pretty hard to pose. You can see on the axe there's been some damage because the fit of the axe and the hand is very tight and it pulls on the acrylic layers on the axe handle. I guess they recommend that you like it comes with a really terrible little marker, but if you used marker like a Sharpie on it, it would bleed really badly, so I feel like paint is the good is is the good way to go for decorating these, but just make posability a little bit. I wouldn't mess with it too much. Although the head swivels without too much problem. But yeah, I think she looks pretty good. And I didn't do such a terrible job at filming, even though it's not one of my strong suits. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how she came out and with how this video is coming out. Yeah, there we go. Trying to rotate her head a little bit. She's almost too shiny, but I guess that's sort of a nitpick since it is. I guess I could go over it again with a more matte sealant, but then she's never gonna dry. Anyway, look at those eyebrows. She is cute. Oh yeah, before I forget, here's the fan art that I made a couple years ago. There she is, with her paws and everything. Bonus art. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.